Hello, this is Sarah with soiledplant and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over my Syngonium collection. It is at the tail end of winter. It is like rainy and gloomy outside. So I know some of these plants aren't going to look their best, but it's almost spring, so I'm sure these will bounce back in no time. A good chunk of my Syngonium collection actually stays on this shelf year round, but I have some in kind of random places around the house, so I will show you those first. The first one I'm going to show you is my Syngonium Erythrophylum Red Arrow. This one I love to death. It's actually, I think, yeah, it is my newest Syngonium in my collection. I am obsessed with it. I have this in one of my Millsbow cabinets, so it's getting optimal light. It's getting really high humidity. So the plant went from having kind of decent size, but like smaller leaves, to having ones that are 3 times the volume, pretty much. This particular pot has 2 plants in it, but the one down here is a lot smaller than this large one, of course. I've already taken quite a few cuttings off of this, and the top is just kind of limply growing and growing sideways because it has no more vertical room to grow on this little bamboo pole. But I will say all of that light has definitely given it those nice dark front leaves. They're not black. I know a lot of photos can make these look black. They are just a dark green. They're also not true matte, and they're not glossy either. They're kind of in between, and they've got a very matte texture to them, but they are not, you know, shine free. And of course, the thing that these are known for are the backs. They're very Calathea-esque, which, I love my Calathea. And they have the deep maroon purpley backs. I love this one. I've taken so many cuttings from it already. And, this thing is gonna keep growing like crazy. I don't know if I want to make a separate plant and like have 2 plants and have them grow in different areas, see how they do. But for right now, this one is really, really gonna bloom and go crazy in spring. I didn't water it the right amount recently, and so a few of the leaves on the bottom don't look so good, but the majority of the plant is just perfect. The next Syngonium I have here is my Ice Frost. This one is kind of half looking great, half looking terrible. I need this to be on a pole like yesterday, and I still haven't done it. It's on my list. I am going to do it one of these days. I think I need to up pot it also. So I'll up pot it, put it on a pole, all those good things. That'll be a late winter, early spring project. But the interesting thing about this one, I have this very, very far from a south-facing window, and I have this on my banquet table between 2 grow lights, but it's right in the center. So I would say of the plants kind of in my house, this one is getting some of the worst light of really any plant in my house. And look at what's happening to the newest leaves is they are becoming the most icy, frosty leaves of any of the ones on this plant. These big ones down here were grown in an east-facing window, like directly in a window, back when I lived in my old apartment, and the leaves got huge, but they lost that icy frostiness. And now all of this new growth that's coming in is like gorgeously frosty. Like, look at that. Like, that is what an ice frost should look like, right? It should have that kind of look like a frosted window. That's what it's supposed to look like. And these new ones are turning into that. Basically, what I'm hearing the plant say from all of that is, keep it exactly where I have it. It loves it there. Just give it a new pot and put it on a pole, please. So I will definitely be doing that because these new leaves that are coming in are perfection. Absolute perfection. As for the shape of the leaves, they are that nice heart shape, but not quite arrow shaped like a standard Syngonium kind of looks like. They're kind of signature shape, but this one is very much a heart-shaped leaf. It almost is philodendron-esque. They are definitely on the unique side. They're kind of a love it or hate it kind of plant. Me, love it. This is my Syngonium albo. I got it in an international order, and it was like 3 leaves. They all died back. They were very, very unhappy, and that was about 2 years ago, and this is what the plant looks like now. A couple of months ago, I ended up chopping off the top of this, and then I grew the cuttings in water, and I replanted all of those cuttings back in the plant. So all along the bottom are the plants that I kind of grew from cuttings. Luckily, when I potted this up, I didn't lose any of those plants. So win for me. This particular plant was super popular like a year and a half ago. They're really hard to find and people were selling them for so much money, and now they are much more readily available. And I, of course, didn't buy this plant with the expectation of, you know, propagating it and selling it. It has that really nice white variegation, and I don't have a ton of plants that have pure white variegation in them. You know, of course, I'd love to have a couple, but they're always like on the expensive side of things. You know, I've got this one, and then I've got my Pothos Enjoy. So I don't have too many plants that have that white variegation, and this is one of the few. So I definitely love it for that reason. This leaf down here is by far my favorite. It is perfect in all ways. I love her so much. With some of the winter growth, I'm getting a little bit less variegation on the top. But my newest leaf has variegation again, so I don't think it's a plant problem necessarily. It's probably a winter problem, so it'll probably right itself. I've had a few leaves come out almost all green, and then the next one comes out and there's tons of variegation in it. So I'm not worried about that. It's just a really great plant, and if you're looking for something like this, just know that the prices on these are coming down. So it's a good time to pick one up if you're looking for it. The rest of my Syngonium are all behind me, so let's go this way. This one's losing its leaf. I did a bad job watering this last go around. I waited way too long, so that's a me problem. But this is a Syngonium chiapens. I've heard it pronounced a million different ways. I don't know the right way to pronounce it, but I call it chiapens. And this is also one that is probably in desperate need of a pull soon. It is teeter-tottering. It is very unstable, and it wants to tip over all the time. So this is definitely one that I'm gonna have to repot in the spring. And this one's leaves are very similar to my Syngonium Ice Frost. It's more of a heart shape as opposed to an arrowhead shape. This is a cutting that I got in a trade. There's actually the perfect spot to cut this if I wanted to cut and propagate this plant, which I'm kind of tempted to do. But for right now, let's focus on the plant itself. It is very lovely. It's almost classic looking, and there's not a ton that is just like solid green like this that has leaves that get this big this quickly. And it was definitely a favorite the second I brought it into my house. It's been amazing. It grows well. It is very tolerant like all Syngoniums. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and I've said this before, and I am so sorry to anyone listening, but the texture of these leaves remind me of adult toys. That like fake silicone that's supposed to emulate skin, that is what this feels like to me, especially when the leaves are brand new. They are very matte, they are very smooth, they're thick, but not quite like super thick. They're thicker than your standard philodendron, but they're like thinner than an Audubon poense. They're definitely thinner than Hoya. It's a weird like in between, but most Syngonium are very, very thin, and these are definitely a little bit thicker and have a little bit more substance to them. But yeah, that is my beautiful Syngonium chiapens. This one keeps wanting to droop on me, so I'm just gonna let her droop. This one, I can look at it. Even if I water it, it's not gonna be strong enough to hold it up. This has to be separated and replanted into the plant in order for it to be upright. Even though it's been in this pot for over a year, it's decided now that it's not strong enough to hold it anymore, and it just kind of flops over. But that's all right, because each plant type has their sort of quirks, and this is one quirk of Syngonium. You know, we all love and accept them for who they are. Now, this Syngonium, I have no idea what kind of Syngonium it is. It definitely has a good amount of pink, depending on the amount of light it gets. It can get almost all the way pink, but most of the time it stays this green color with a little bit of pink in the center. Like this is what a leaf looks like when they're mostly pink. This is another one that's mostly pink. It's still kind of like a muted sort of rusty pink as opposed to like a bright, bright pink. And I've got a new leaf coming in right here that is definitely on that bright pink side. Here, let me up against the green. Yeah, you can see better how pink that is, that new one coming in. So it all just depends on how much light it's getting, how much pink it'll throw for you. And I do not know what this is because this is a cutting I took from my parents' plant about, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe. And I love this. I almost don't want to put it in a bigger pot because that means I can't put it in this cover pot anymore. And I love this combination. I love having gold up against my green and pink plant like this. I just love it. That's okay, we'll graduate her to somebody else. This here is another Syngonium that I have no idea what it is. I bought it for a terrarium project and it didn't fit in the terrarium. So here it is. And if you're like, Sarah, of course it's sad, it needs a bigger pot. I actually tried to up-pot this and this thing had no roots. It had like roots when I tried to repot this. So it's working on growing roots now. I've got a new leaf unfurling right here, so it is growing new leaves, but it is, I have no idea what it is. It has the nice little pink in the center, but for the most part, no idea what it is. I'll keep growing it, I guess. Maybe I'll give it away at some point or trade it, or I don't know. We'll see, but it doesn't exactly bring me a lot of joy, but it is, you know, I keep watering it and keep letting it do its thing. All right, this is one of my thirstiest Syngoniums. This is my Syngonium Holly. It definitely needs a water, which it will get right after this video. But this is one that I got from, you know, a big box store, and I loved hollies. I heard everybody talking about them for a little bit, and when you give it proper light, like good, like perfect light, these leaves can become almost white. It's like a light green, but it's almost white in the center. But I've decided that that is not worth it to me, and so I'm happy with it being just green. This is one of the stragglers here that kind of has that quintessential holly look to it that most people were looking for. But most of my growth is looking like this, and honestly, I kind of like that better. So it grows a lot, it grows quickly, it's happy, and it just needs watering like all the time. And my last one is another mystery Syngonium. I find that so many Syngoniums look the same. Like, tell me this doesn't look exactly like my terrarium one. To me, it looks pretty much the same, and it might be the same for all I know, but it is really hard for me to differentiate between different Syngonium varieties. I know the obvious ones, of course, but these like more common ones, I couldn't tell you what they were. But I definitely keep them. You know, the Syngoniums are probably the only plants in my whole house that I don't know the actual name of, and I'm just like guessing what they are. But I keep them because I find them super easy to grow. They're lovely. They get bushy and they can vine and all that kind of stuff. So they definitely fill up a space really beautifully, and they're so low maintenance. They're almost like a pothos when it comes to care. Maybe a little bit more on the watering side, like they don't like to dry out quite as much as pothos will tolerate. But these are so easy, guys. I love them so much. This one I definitely repotted recently because this is one of my newer pots and my newer soil mixture. I can tell by looking at it. So it's definitely doing really well. Whatever it is, I love them all the same. I mean, that's not true, but I do love them all a lot. So my Syngonium collection is very small. There's not a ton of them. And honestly, I kind of wish that I could get my hands on a couple more. I definitely know that I'm trying to get my hands on a Syngonium aurea. Basically, it's the same thing as the Albo version, but it's the yellow variegation. I've been wanting to get my hands on one of those, but I'm looking for the right specimen for the right price. They're a little bit more expensive than your standard Syngoniums like the ones I have. And I would definitely dabble into more interesting Syngoniums, the ones that are similar to like the Ice Frost and that kind of shape. I would dabble in that. I would love, oh my gosh, I would love to have a Syngonium tricolor, but those things, oh my gosh, they're like $500 for a good specimen, or the ones you can find have like none of the colors in it. I will definitely wait for those to come down in price before I even try to get my hands on one of those. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, I post videos every Thursday, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!